Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Dracula Week here in the month of October. We're finishing it off today. It's all been leading to this, Van Helsing. I mean, technically, it's all leading to this, but that's tomorrow. Today, we're talking about Van Helsing, and, I kind of planned to put this near the end because I knew that it brought a lot of characters together, like Dracula and a werewolf and Frankenstein's monster, but I didn't plan for it to be the last one that I actually watched while filming these, and I didn't realize how many homages and references there are to other movies of all these different characters, and I'm sure I didn't catch them all, and there were probably things that I did catch that might have been unintentional or a coincidence, but it was a really neat experience. So, of all the Dracula movies, this is the only one that I had seen before. This movie came out when I was a kid. I enjoyed it as a kid. I was a big fan of X-Men, and I was a big fan of Underworld, and Kate Beckinsale in particular. So you put those two things together with some monsters, I'm on board. I had the junior novelization of this movie, and I read this. I don't remember anything about it, although when I went to go grab it off the shelf today, I was like, I bet there are a series of pictures inside, and I bet one of them is of Kate Beckinsale. And I was correct. So, I was a big fan of this movie as a kid. I'm sure that has skewed my feelings of it, looking back on it as an adult. But I still had a really good time with this movie. I never realized how long this movie is. It's over 2 hours, but I've never felt like this is a long movie like I have with other movies that I've watched. So, I got some notes. I'm going to talk about this movie. We start with the black and white logo and the intro. I think that's super cool. A reference back to the old stuff that we've been talking about throughout this month. And right from the beginning, and I think it lasts through the whole movie, they nail the tone and they nail the balance between what things they take seriously and what things are more campy and more silly. And I don't think this movie works if it's just serious or if it's just silly. But I think this movie, in my opinion, nails that balance between the two. And I think that helps other things that maybe wouldn't hold up as well otherwise, which we'll get to. So early on we see Igor working with Dracula and Victor Frankenstein, and hearing the voice, I wrote, is that Benny from The Mummy? And I looked it up, and yes, it is, but not only that, this was directed by the director of The Mummy, Stephen Sommers. Neat. That helps explain why I like this movie so much, because I love the Mummy movie with Brendan Fraser, which I've already talked about in this series. So, neat little connection there that I wasn't expecting. I wrote, in the next sequence, I wrote Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Shrek, because Hyde sounds a bit and looks a bit like Shrek in this. And, it is... I've read other people make the comment that Jekyll and Hyde seems a little out of place in this because he was never one of the Universal main monsters. Probably would have been more fitting for Van Helsing to be chasing Gilman at the beginning and have that be the featured creature early on, but I think they were originally planning to use Gilman later in the movie, and then that part was cut. So Jekyll and Hyde makes sense. He was in Abbott and Costello Meet Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, so he was in a Universal movie. He just wasn't one of the main ones. I think it works. So this is what I was talking about with the tone. The effects in this movie don't hold up. I think, in my opinion, most of the ones in the black and white sequence at the beginning still look pretty good. I think that's helped by the fact that it's in black and white. But throughout the rest of the movie, it's very much an early 2000s movie. You get a lot of Daredevil vibes. But because it doesn't take itself too seriously, I think most of it is still fine. There are a couple things, particularly with humans, particularly like when Hugh Jackman, spoiler, at the end when he's going back and forth between his werewolf form and his human form, some of that human form stuff doesn't look great. I think most of it, though, still pretty much works for the tone that the movie has. I'm not saying that it looks good, And certainly this Mr. Hyde is no masterpiece in CG at this point. But I think it works for the movie that it's in. And so I think the tone of the movie helps kind of... I can't explain. But I think it helps me accept this subpar CG when it's not something that the movie is demanding that I take seriously. At one point, I wrote, that isn't Van Helsing. So I've talked about in other videos that I haven't finished the Dracula book yet. But based on all the other film versions I've seen, I'm pretty sure that this is a pretty far departure from the Van Helsing from the original novel. And I saw something in the trivia about how this is not supposed to be that same Van Helsing, that maybe it's a brother or something like that, because they do call him Gabriel rather than Abraham. But I don't think they ever say in the movie that it's the original Van Helsing's brother. So I don't know exactly where that's coming from, or if that's just an inference that people made. Either way, I don't care, because I don't have deep ties to Dracula mythology, so I'm totally fine with them reinventing the character to make a cool action hero out of him. But I can see why some people might be annoyed by that, but I'm not one of those people. Then I wrote, get the church involved. So I think it was, oh gosh, what was it? Dracula 2000 that I complained about, like, what do I want in my Dracula movies? Christianity lore, because they made Dracula Judas and they had Jesus involved and it was really weird. I don't want to say I'm a sucker for, but I generally enjoy when movies take the Christian church or the Catholic Church, if you want to separate them that way, and do this kind of dark underside to them. Things like the Da Vinci Code, things like the Three Musketeers, right? Whether or not it's supernatural, I just kind of like the idea of this facade on this thing, hiding this thing beneath. I can understand why some people wouldn't like things like that, but I do. And so this one, it does it in a way that I enjoy, as opposed to Dracula 2000, where it was just like inserting Dracula into the story of Christ, but not having a story about the church and the things that the church is doing and hiding behind and things like that. That wasn't about the church, it was about Christ himself, which I feel differently about. Anyway, moving on from there. Then I wrote David Wenham as Q, because this movie puts a little bit of James Bond in also. David Wenham. I remember when I first learned that Carl in this movie is the same guy that plays the narrator in 300, and I was just like, oh my gosh, that's the same guy. For a while, too, I thought it was Nathan Fillion. I thought those people and Nathan Fillion were all the same person, and then I realized that that's not true. But still, the guy from 300 and Carl in this movie are very different characters, but David Wenham nails both of them. Well done, David Wenham. The fully automatic crossbow. One of the coolest things I remember seeing in a movie as a kid. I've got a fair collection of Nerf crossbows in my garage. None of them are fully automatic though. But man, that was so cool, you know. I know it's dumb, I know it's stupid, but it's unique. That's not something you see in a lot of movies. So it sticks out. In the scene where the vampires attack the Transylvanians during the day, we've got this little thing with the cow where they pick up the cow and throw it through a house, and then at the end of the scene, after everything has died down, we go back and there's another shot of the cow like on the porch. Just little things like that really make me enjoy movies like this. That reminds me of the movie Twister, where we get the cow back and forth, and I don't think that's an intentional homage. It doesn't really make sense that it would be, but it's just little things like that go a long way with me. But then we get this line about the Transylvanians are upset that Van Helsing has killed a bride, and he's like, Carl is like, isn't that a good thing? And they say, vampires only kill what they need to survive, 1 or 2 people a month. Now they're going to kill for revenge. How many people are in Transylvania? Because it seems like the whole town is there, and it seems like it's maybe a couple hundred people. 1 or 2 people a month is a lot. Why are you okay with that? Like, I understand that it's worse, but like they make it sound like, oh, it's just 1 or 2 people a month. Like, that seems like a lot for the population of Transylvania. So that's a little weird. Maybe we can brush it off as saying that Transylvania is much bigger than what we see, or maybe the people are just stupid, or maybe, I guess, life expectancy isn't going to be that high at the time anyway, so there's going to be a lot of death anyway, so if it's by vampires, doesn't make that much of a difference. But still, I feel like 1 or 2 people a month, you're not going to get very far before your whole town's gone. Okay, and then I wrote down the question, who are the steampunk goblins? And then it's answered later in the film. They call them Dwergi, which they spell Dwerger, D-W-E-R-G-E-R, in the subtitles. And I looked it up. I cannot find that word anywhere. Every result that I found when I Googled any version of that word was just about Van Helsing, the movie. So I'm like, what? Does this word exist? Because they're dwarfs. That's what they are. They're dwarves. But does that word exist outside of this movie? And if so, where? Because I can't find it. Granted, I haven't looked that far for it. But I can't find it. And if not, why make up a new word? If you're already using pre-existing characters and pre-existing IP, just call them dwarves. Why make up a new word for them? I don't understand. It's kind of odd. But hey, there you go. We get the poem from the old Wolfman movies, the werewolf movies, many of which I've watched in here, about Wolfsbane and when the moon comes out. I forget the poem, I'm sorry. But a poem that was featured in the classic Wolfman movie and several other Wolfman movies, or werewolf movies. Since then, that poem is referenced again in this film as Carl looks at the magical painting with characters that start to animate. And then at one point, I tried to write down every movie that's in this movie, or every type of movie that's in this movie. Obviously, you've got Dracula, Frankenstein, Wolfman, Hyde. No mummies. Mummies are kind of the odd week out in October, but that's okay. Little bit of Bond with that scene where Carl is Q telling him all the stuff they have. A little bit of Indiana Jones, especially when we get that scene with the map as they're traveling from Transylvania towards Rome. A little bit of The Mummy, and a little bit of Underworld. Not only because Kate Beckinsale's there, but this idea of this centuries-long conflict. And, these are all things that I enjoy. So when you put them all in one movie, and you don't take it too seriously, I'm probably going to enjoy it, which I very much do in this movie. So then we get this masquerade ball in Budapest. And this is one of those things where sometimes movies do things that don't make sense because it looks cool. Everyone at this masquerade ball is a vampire. If Dracula and his 3 brides need to kill 1 or 2 people a month to keep them alive, how many victims die to these dozens, if not hundreds, of vampires here in Budapest? Now, I'm not sure if all of these vampires are from Budapest and live in Budapest, or if perhaps they're from all around and they're just gathering here in Budapest. That's not clear. So that's in my head the excuse for this, because I was like, if all these people live in Budapest, aren't there going to be just massive amounts of people dying to vampire attacks in Budapest? But maybe they don't all live there. So I'll let it slide, but you could have set a line there to make it clear. And then my last note, what does that say? Monologue. We get the great burn from Princess Anna before Frozen, when one of the brides is monologuing, about to kill Anna, and then Carl throws her the stake and she stabs her and she's like, I think if you're going to kill someone, then kill them. Don't talk about killing them. And then the vampire burns up. I love this movie. I love the accents from the brides. I love the accent from Kate Beckinsale. Hugh Jackman is great. David Wenham is great. I love Richard Roxburgh. Again, just like David Wenham, Richard Roxburgh plays Dracula in this, and then like the dweeby Duke in Moulin Rouge, and they're totally different, but he nails both of them. I like the creature design. I didn't realize how accurate, maybe not how accurate, but I didn't realize some of the ways in which the Frankenstein monster in this movie is accurate to the novel, mainly with his intelligence and speech. So I had a new appreciation for the Frankenstein's monster. I like the werewolf look in this. I read that it was supposed to be reminiscent of American Werewolf in London. To me, it seems fairly similar to the werewolves in Underworld, just not quite as realistic and intense, which makes sense because those movies are a little bit more serious and this movie is not. There's just so much about this that I like. I'm glad that I'm still able to enjoy it. As I don't think I've watched this since college. It's probably been a decade since I've seen this, but still a good time. What a great way to end off Dracula week and nearly the entire month of October. Although we do have this guy left. We'll see. It's been a minute since I've seen that one too, but that's gonna do it for this video on Van Helsing. Obviously, I'm a big fan. You can let me know your thoughts below, but that's everything I've got to say for now about Van Helsing. Thank you very much for watching, and have a good day. Hey everybody, Sam Tom here. Just wanted to let you know that I have 2 channels. If you're watching my music content, I also have a movie channel where I talk about movies and TV shows. If you're watching my movie content, I have a music channel where I do song covers, instrument demos, things like that. So feel free to check that out. Obviously, like, share, subscribe, comment, all that YouTube stuff. Thank you very much for watching, and have a good day.